some younger than others. And so, you're 41 years old, you win a major. It's wonderful. But second, sports people, athletes, business people, everybody else realize that if you put your head to it and you plan it and you deal with the pressure, as Amy said, the right way, good things happen to you, even if you're kind of deemed too old to win a major. So here she is, Angela Stanford. We're here at the Volunteers of America LPGA Texas Classic at Old America Golf Course in the Colony, Texas. Did I get that right? Was that all good?
I think so.
Good?
You're good.
Angela Stanford, one of golf's superstars. She has double-digit wins. No, she has. How's that? Does it get better every minute?
I love it. I hope I see you by the end of the week.
By the end of the week, we'll have 100 wins.
Yeah.
6 wins, Solheim Cup, a lot of success on the LPGA Tour. You start as a youngster, a real youngster, successful youngster. 1993 to 96, you won 4 straight Fort Worth tournament girls championships. When did you know you were going to be a superstar?
I didn't. I wasn't highly recruited. That's the funny part. I just wanted to play. Like, that was the whole thing. I just wanted to play golf, and I was fortunate enough to be recruited by TCU and got to play all 4 years at TCU.
And then at TCU, you decided Q school or right out to be a pro. What was the deal from there?
I should have known this is the way my luck works. So my senior year, my coach says, well, if you're going to go to Q school, you probably need to go the first year out. That's probably going to be your best bet. I'm like, okay. Well, there's this thing called the Futures Tour at the time. It's now our Symetra Tour. If I can go and I can get my status that way, then I won't have to go to Q school. So I do that, and then about the time I get the Curtis Cup call. So then I have to stay an amateur, and it just it worked out perfectly. I got to play the Curtis Cup, the amateur, the British amateur, the U.S. Open as an amateur, and then I had to go to Q school. So I was trying to avoid Q school, and then went and made it my first time and been here ever since.
And the pressure that the kids have Q school as a defining moment in their career, you have other kind of pressures, but that's not a pressure you have to currently deal with.
It is a brutal week. And I told myself when I left I never want to come back. And I haven't. And I think what we're doing with our Q school, we're changing the format. I think we'll tell I think you play 8 rounds instead of 5.
Right.
So I think I'm going to be interested to see how that goes, because I think it's going to be good.
4-year speech communication major, so you can have any job in the broadcast booth that you ultimately want. Your career is set on the course, and I'm sure it would be off the course too. But a lot of the women that you play with probably have uncertain futures relative to a high-risk game because they don't know where their next dollar is coming from. Talk about the business of being a pro golfer.
I tell you, it's really, the older I get, so I've been out here 18 years, and I'm so glad I didn't know then what I know now. Because,
would you have done it?
Yes,
yeah, of course
yes,
you would.
I would have. But, I tell people all the time, I start at 0. Every year I start at 0. I think the one thing that we could probably... The area now that I'm older, I didn't know this when I was younger, is I think we could do better on the retirement and investment side of our tour. That's the thing that scares me the most watching my younger friends is, do they understand the retirement aspect of it? Do they understand? Because you're not going to play professional golf forever. You may not play 2 more years.
Right.
Are you prepared for that?
But you got to get there. Right?
Exactly. So I think, but you also have to do something for yourself along the way too. I think that's the area of growth that our tour, we probably need that the most, after, and I've always said we have all these little things and we're getting better in so many areas. Well, retirement's one of those things that you don't really think about until you need it. So we're handling the things that we need to handle on this tour, but now that I'm getting older, I'm getting closer to that retirement, I'm thinking maybe we should, look into that.
Well, and it's a trade-off, right? Because golf and tennis are inherently independent contractor sports, and it's survival of the fittest. But yet there are obligations of the league to be able to prepare you to do some things. This would be one of them?
Well, I mean, I mean education.
Yeah.
Like, what can we be doing for ourselves? I think that, because I wasn't aware, this is something that I've learned along the way. So I think that's one area, talk about the business side of it, that I think we could learn more.
How'd you find your first sponsor?
It was actually the relationship that I had with my college golf team at TCU. Coach Angie had relationship with Ping, and when we would go play in Phoenix, we went to Ping, and she's like, I want you to introduce yourself to the employees. I want you to know, the people that are giving you the golf clubs to use. And I said, Coach, I want to be a Ping player. And I loved that company. I love, how nice they were to me. And they're just great people, and I wanted to be a part of their team.
Do you view the Pro-Ams as a friendship solicitation, sponsorship solicitation, just getting to know people? How do you get in? Oh, and you got to practice for the tournament. But what's the balance?
I'm very old school in my take on Pro-Ams. I believe it is honestly for the AMs. It's for it's their day. Any practice I'm going to do needs to happen before. I'll probably hit some putts out there, but hopefully all of my homework's done, because that day is really about them. And I'm kind of old school in that, because I've had some older ladies teach me that and teach me the importance of that. So I see it as I want to know people's stories. Like, I want to know what they're doing there. I want to know, how did you wind up playing with me on a Wednesday in Texas?
Yeah, and it's an interesting concept as well when you combine it with Mike Wan's little cue cards, where he tells people that may not get it as much as you, that the sponsors are the ones who sign the checks. So you got to make sure that it is their day, whether you believe it or not. And
it is. I mean, it truly is. If they have a terrible time, they're not coming back. And that's, I use that with my foundation event too. I tell my board, and I say, look, I want certain things done a certain way, because I want people to come back. I want them to have a good time. I don't want them to walk away saying, I never want to do that again. And I think that's what LPGA players get. They get that if they walk away saying, gosh, that was fun, they'll come back.
Talk about your foundation.
I've always wanted to help kids. I love kids. I think a lot of times they kind of get dealt a bad hand, and they didn't ask for it. My mom was diagnosed in 2009, and then we lost a board member to cancer in 2010. And I realized that when I was in high school, if I were a senior, I probably wouldn't have gone straight to school, because we were very middle class. So we're trying to catch those kids that maybe are too rich or too poor, and they kind of miss some of the funding or whatever. So we're just trying to help them keep going. I believe you have to have a purpose in the morning.
You're passionate, obviously. You have some experience with the benefits of the charity. Business show, how's your foundation organized? You have an active board. Do you run it? What's the deal?
I'm on the board. We have 7 board members. We have a scholarship committee who reads the scholarship applications. I sit on that too. I'm very involved. I actually had this conversation with my mom before the foundation started in 2009. And I said, Mom, I think it's a big deal to ask people for their money. And I don't want to ever do anything that I'm not supposed to do with that money. We only have one paid employee. I say we're very boutique-y. We're not the Walmarts of the world, but hopefully we'll get there. We serve Texas kids in Texas schools. But
pretty big state to start.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're trying to keep the expenses to a minimum, because when people give me their money, I want them to know that it's actually going to a kid in their future.
Sure they know, and I'm sure they do. Interesting question. I'm assuming you're a jock, you're a Cowboy fan, TCU. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the one and done in college basketball?
Boy, I tell you, I wish it would go away. And I always thought, so then you see these kids for 2 or 3 more years, and I think that makes the NCAA tournament at the end of the year that much better. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you could make it better, but I think it would. Yeah. But then I didn't even think about the front end of that, where kids that don't even want to go to college. And I kind of wish it would be that way. Either you don't go, or you declare as an amateur, or whatever you're going to do. And if you don't get drafted, you still have that opportunity. But I think the one and done, because I want to see those guys keep playing. There's just something about watching a senior at Duke, or something like, senior at, one.
It's like Tyrannosaurus Rex now. You're never going to see another one. Probably.
I know. I wish they had more juniors and seniors playing in the NCAA tournament.
Well, the bottom line too is that, and this is not for this, but it is interesting to know that we're probably heading toward that baseball system where you can either go straight to the pros, but if you commit, you got to stay at least 2 years. Better?
I love it. Yeah. I think it's great for the coaches too. This is just my personal opinion. I'm not sure that you have the controversy with the coaches if it weren't so cutthroat about, I got to find that one kid for 1 year and then he's got to go.
Yeah. And from a TCU perspective, when are you going to start playing defense? You win your football games 63-58. Are you going to start? You're going to start playing defense sometime, or what?
You're talking about Coach Patterson's defense. I just can't believe that. I think Coach Patterson's got it under control.
Good. There you go. That's a good answer. And a Cowboy fan, clearly.
I am. I really, sincerely, they drive me crazy, and I can't say why because I know that Jerry Jones would see this somewhere along the line.
Yes, he
and,
would. He's at the Pro-Am party tonight, by the way, personally. There's a big 50-foot screen of him up there, so looking down.
I have a few things to say.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure.
No, I find myself, definitely Cowboy fan by birth, but when I watch them, as mad as they make me, I'm behind them.
So finally, speech communication major, TCU grad, what do you do after golf?
I don't know. I never. Somebody once told me a long time ago, if you have a plan B, you're probably going to fall back on it. So I haven't really had a plan B yet, but I think if you're totally 100% in on what you're doing right now, I think the right door will open when you're done.
And so there are a few more majors in your major victories in your future?
I hope so. I think that's why I'm sticking around. Maybe I just outlast everybody and then I finally get one.
Not a problem with that. Work for the Cubs. Thank you, Angela. Appreciate that very much.
Thanks for having me.
You can tell Angela's articulate.